Hey, it's Arrow, and this is Frag. Frag is something that I do in two different places. I have a daily journal that I keep that I started in November of 2017. And we defrag when I take what's called a transition walk through this beautiful forest in South Charlotte, North Carolina. I come here to listen. But when we do these episodes, I also come here to express, to ask questions, not just be the listener and take it all in. But I ask the questions, and then I question the answers. This is Frag. The subject this time around is something that I know we're all very guilty of. We just don't talk about it. And the reason why we don't talk about it is because it's one of those things that unless you've been educated to believe in what we're going to cover here, you will never go in the direction, but you'll always sit there and try to figure things out without really pinpointing what the situation is. For instance, I've always believed radio listeners don't know why they hate listening to a station. They just know they don't go to that station. They've never been trained as to why something is bothering them. They just know in their heart when they're listening, I'm not going there. I just don't feel it. Well, today's subject as we go on this transition walk, ghosting yourself. Ghosting yourself. Have you ever heard of that term ghost? Ghost is when you've got somebody in social media that you've talked to for a long period of time, and suddenly you don't talk to them anymore. You've disconnected. It's, maybe every now and then you might check in, but you don't really have a conversation with them. You don't sit there and like something. You don't do anything. You just kind of move on. The Banshees movie, which is up for an Academy Award, several of them this year, is kind of a ghosting movie, except in face-to-face form, because the gentleman in Banshees looks at his friend of many, many, many years, and he basically says, I don't like you anymore. Now, I've been there. Don't tell me you haven't been there. We've all been there, where you're with somebody and you're wondering, okay, what's going on here? I've invested, and we've invested a lot of time in this relationship, and nothing's changed. It's the same conversations, the same emotions, the same every day. And you end up ghosting them. Now in Banshees, he ghosts this guy in person, and you get to see his physical emotions, whereas if you ghost somebody on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you don't really get to see what the other person is going through. But I'm going to be very honest with you. I know what I have felt like when people aren't talking to me anymore, because it's like, okay, why? You don't even accept my phone calls anymore. I know, but I've been really super busy. On this defrag, it came to me earlier this week. Can we ghost ourselves? Do we have the full mental capability of turning our backs on ourselves? I had to do some research, because research is what I love to do. Being a 43-year veteran in radio, I call it show prep. I had to show prep. And the reason why is because I'm going to ghost my ass if this doesn't come out right. But the answer is yes, you can ghost yourself. And it's one of those things where, especially writers, singer-songwriters, book authors, poets, people who publish their stuff in newspaper magazines, even sports magazines, what happens is that your first draft is okay. Your second draft, didn't go that way. Your third draft is getting tougher. By the time you get to a fourth draft or a fifth draft, you've given up on the project. That's a form of ghosting yourself, where you're basically saying to yourself, no, I'm moving on. Now, I can relate with that in a huge way, because I used to have this burning desire and passion to put art on a canvas. I was one of those starving artists. I loved paint. I loved the smell of it. I loved putting my fingers in it. I loved talking to the other artists that were in galleries. And then I finally started doing shows, some very successful shows. Had a great time until I had a really bad show in New Orleans. I knew going into the show that my feelings were not good. And I've always said it's only because I knew what the future was, because I've lived this life before. It was a bad show. A lot of bad words were shared on both sides. And I stopped. And the reason why I stopped painting, that burning desire, that basically inspired my very first book, One Man's 1,021 Thoughts. The reason why I stopped was, if I'm not going to do galleries, why am I doing canvases? Why am I going to sit here and collect a bunch of canvases that I'm never going to hang on the wall? I don't have the room for that. So I ghosted it. The artist. And the artist has sat there very patiently and tried to figure out newer ways to come forward. Now, in today's modern day technology, thank God for my wife, she's got me this little drawing board that hooks up to the computer. It's not paint, I can't smell it. I don't have the texture of the page or the canvas in front of me, but I'm still able to draw. And I just kicked this on just at Christmas 2022. But I haven't gotten back to it because I had that little block. I ghosted that person, that artist. And so when that artist came out that one particular day, sure, I defragged about it, but there was a major side of me that was living in a memory. So when I say that you can ghost yourself creatively, it happens all the time. Now the question this time around on Defrag is, what else are you doing in your life where you are ghosting yourself? The more and more I dug into this, my imagination and my heart kept saying, oh, this is procrastination. This is what people call procrastination, setting things aside or not starting a certain project. When in fact, it is a physical act of ghosting. Another form of ghosting is if you're trying to build a relationship up with a person. Let's say that you're a single person or maybe a divorcee, a widow, and you're trying to build a relationship. And you keep that person at a distance. And because you're trying to protect your heart. Dig into that picture a little bit more. Protecting your heart? Or are you ghosting yourself from feeling the real emotion of love, togetherness, acceptance, a little bit of laughter, sharing dinner together? We tend to really put ourselves in situations where we really don't want to deal with things. And so when we identify what that personality is, and we feel a little bit uncomfortable, well, the first thing we do is we ghost it. How do you break free of a moment where you've ghosted yourself? I'm moving through it right now, as we discussed before, trying to wake the artist back up for the canvas. And once again, I think the reason why the artist isn't jumping on this as quickly as my wife had hoped is because of the texture of the canvas. It's a computer screen or a computer board of sorts with a fake pen is what it is. It's like, it looks like a pen, but it's not a pen. It's digital. And the thing is, this is the thing that really grabs my attention very quickly. And I don't think it's a positive, but I need to somehow turn it into a positive. On these little magic boards, you can hit undo. If I put paint on a canvas, there is no undo. You work with what you've got. And so I think that's playing a game on my head, and I think that's one of the reasons why I continue to ghost myself in a way of not making room for the artist. But this is not about me, this is about you. What are you doing in your life that you might begin to think, oh my God, I'm ghosting myself. I have turned that person completely off, and I don't know why. Or maybe you do know why, and you don't want to share why. I've got a very good friend. His name is Bill. And I like to talk with people. I interview famous people, all kinds of people every day. If you're going to hang out with me, I don't care if you're a friend or a foe, I am going to ask questions because that's just what I do. Can I turn it off and protect the friendship? I guess that would be a choice. But you know what I was when you picked me up. If I'm not asking questions, you're going to think that I'm not interested in the conversation or the relationship. But with Bill, I asked him a couple of questions, and it touched an area that tore open a wound. And he looked at me and he goes, no, we're not going there. I will never talk about that subject. And yet, Bill is the guy that I made a promise to. And the promise was that he was going to be the one interviewer that was going to get my true story, that was going to go into the dark caverns and hear the reason why that particular part of my personality took shape and why it became an escaping tool. But he won't let me talk to him in the way that he wants to talk with me. So in a way, we have ghosted each other to help put ourselves in a situation of safety. So now, back to you. Ghosting yourself. So now we've talked about safety. One of the reasons why you could be ghosting yourself. You don't feel safe or secure in the area when you do the things that you're doing. What would happen if you change that? Changing means awareness. Awareness means personal growth, which takes us right back to changing. And a lot of people don't want to move through changes because they're pretty much secure with where they are. But if you're like my sister, you sit in a chair all day and bitch about your life. Well, change it. And then you find more reasons to bitch about your life. My sister is a full blown out ghosted person. She has ghosted herself and tried to put herself in positions where she doesn't have to think about who she is as a real human being. And so I've dealt with this many times in my life to where people around me, you can physically see them ghost themselves. And even though you want to bring them back out, like me trying to bring back the artist on the canvas, they refuse. And it causes a bump in the relationship. Suddenly, you're not talking to each other. And when people ask, so, how's your sister? I don't know. That's what happens when you start ghosting yourself. Not only do you ghost yourself and quit thinking about your own personal emotions, you don't think about others and how they might have feelings for you. Ghosting yourself is a very serious issue, and it might be one where you have to seek professional help to make your way through that storm. But once again, you have to identify what you're ghosting. And once you do, ask yourself the questions and then question the answers. I write every day in a journal. I've been doing that since July of 1994. The Frag journal started in November of 2017. It took me that long, that many years to say, hey, you're not asking the questions and you're not questioning the answers. So now my challenge is on to you. Defrag. Find out what part of your personality that you have ghosted. And try to have a cool moment where you reach out and touch each other and see if you can get along. I'm always in touch with my multiple personalities. And really, are they personalities, or as we talked about it in the past, labels? I'm always in touch with my labels. If I'm writing poetry, well, he must be the poet. But he doesn't write books, so therefore he must not be the author. Oh, but he's not doing podcasting, so he must not be the podcaster. Everything I am, everything that I do is a label. And it's so easy to put yourself in a position like that. I don't talk openly with people about that stuff. I just say, well, it's one of my personalities. And they kind of go, oh, you're a schizo. Wow, I take offense to that. No, I'm not a schizo. I'm in control of my personalities because I study my personalities and or my labels. Which one of these am I going to ghost? Which label am I going to step away from for a while so that I can grow new labels? Because you can't do them all at the same time. There's only 24 hours in a day. But the focus, once again, is back on you. You might have different personalities. The person that wakes up in the morning versus the person that has lunch with a friend versus the person that has to take the kids to some soccer game. Every one of those is a label. And when you think about your labels, it all feeds through one little tube. And that tube leads to you. It's you. This forest is so noisy today. Can you hear them? I love it. Don't ghost yourself. When you find yourself walking away from something that you had a lot of passion for, or maybe you've got passion to put back in your life, or need in your life, step through the wall by asking the questions and questioning the answers. I'm Arrow, and that's Defrag.